This season has turned into something almost unrecognizable. Like, if you haven't been locked in, you might have missed some of the massive changes to how you just play WoW day to day. It's kind of crazy. There's new crest saving tricks, all limiters have pretty much been removed, and there's even ways to get alts geared in pretty much just a couple of minutes if you're lucky. It's kinda crazy. So in today's WoW News, we have a lot to cover. There's all the things that have changed in-game, but perhaps more importantly, there's everything that is about to be changed as well. I'll start with something huge. As of last week, all crests are now uncapped, so there's basically no more limits on your progress. No more logging in and finding yourself having capped within just an hour or two, which is what had happened to me for most of my time being serious about this season, and then, being left thinking, there's really not much else to do. That did get pretty bad this season, especially once hero crests started coming so easily from Nightmare Prey, but now it's basically not a problem. You can just play as much as you want, and outside of raid gear and the vault, really nothing is stopping you from just completely maxing things out. But there's another side to this as well. Crest transmutation. It becomes so much more powerful whenever you can trade crests up into, really good ones. Because of course previously, the cap would rapidly shut that down. With the cap not shutting that down, it really is crazy, and it feels like almost every resource you get can actually be used to further your character. Which feels pretty great, and it begs a question. Why are they doing this now? Well, Blizzard haven't actually explained themselves here, but most people are pointing to one thing, and that thing is the Lura Hall of Fame, because it closed the same week. So Blizzard clearly sees that as the kind of proper end to the season. That means that they can now open the season up and just let people go as ham as they want. That sounds great, but I've seen people have a bit of a worry. The worry being how long it takes to actually max out your character when, you're grinding up all these crests, especially if you've not been playing loads. That's led to people asking for a crest buff, and once you crunch the numbers, I think you can kinda see their point. So, even using the hero crest trick to get myth items to 2 out of 6, you still need a rather whopping 1,280 myth crests. Now, naturally, the fastest way to do that is Mythic Plus, and you've got two choices. 12 crests for every timed plus 10 you do, which is a hell of a lot easier, or 16 from a timed plus 12, which ultimately ends up being a lot faster. Now, what's cool about Raider.io is we can dive into the data, and it shows that 10s and 12s average between 20 and 30% of the timer being left whenever they're actually completed. So here's what that basically maths out to in real terms. 33 hours of plus 12s, or 39 hours of doing plus 10s. That's a hell of a lot, and that's also just the pure dungeon time. That's not including all the time faffing around before a dungeon or between dungeons. Once you factor that in, you could be looking at 60 plus hours of endgame just for upgrades, never mind the gear itself. Though if you're running that much content, you're probably going to be swimming in gear. Now, if you get the discount achievement, then you can shave half the crests off, but it's still well above 30 hours just to get geared. Now, I can see how those numbers seem spooky, but I think it's a pretty okay duration across a full season, especially if you're also playing the rest of the game. A lot of higher-end Mythic Plus players see gearing as basically foreplay before their real game starts. Basically, what feels like a meaningful gearing journey to one person may just be a chore to another. So perhaps extra crests should be on the table this late in the season, but you know what? They're not a thing, and that has not stopped people, because people are finding unintended ways to bypass as much as 240 myth crests, and the wild thing about it this time is that just about everyone can make use of this. Ascendant Void Cores then. These are a huge power boost this late in the season, and the way they work is kind of interesting. So, you can blast a weapon or a trinket way above its usual level of power, but there's a trick to doing it right. Blizzard probably didn't think about how this works with crests, so if you use an Ascendant Void Core on a hero weapon, it rockets up to eye level 285. That's the same level as Myth 5 out of 6. So if you get a Myth weapon from the Vault or something else, you can just upgrade that basically to a massive item level without using a single crest, and then to finish the item off, it's just 20. And then, well, another Void Core will allow you to get up to eye level 298. Now, this works on weapons and trinkets, and overall, it'll save you 240 Myth Crests, which is, when we go back to our Keystones, 15 fewer Mythic plus 12s that you'd have to grind to complete your character. Not that you need to complete your character, of course, just do that if you want to. Now, you'll still need the hero crests from doing all that content, but those things are far easier to come by. And you can also pull this trick off with crafted weapons as well, which is pretty sweet, though they are a little bit weaker. You'll basically need 40 crests for 2 upgrade stages instead of 20. Now, of course, it does sound like there's a catch here. And usually there would be a catch, but there doesn't seem to be this time, because in a kind of rare display of just being friendly towards people who want to farm things, Blizzard did not cap Ascendant cores the way that they did with the bonus roll things, which were called nebulous cores. Basically, you can use as many of these things as you like, and Blizzard made them pretty easy to farm. You see, they noticed players running ritual sites like madmen for the shards that you need, so what they did is they actually hotfixed the drop rates, and that means that instead of grinding ritual sites for a chance at a drop, you can now just do Mythic Plus, Raid, or just spend Delve keys to get guaranteed ones. So you're going to be swimming in these things if you target it. And there's really no catch to this, it is purely deterministic upgrade chasing, which is a kind of crazy thing for the game. But of course, myth gear isn't the only thing Blizzard are handing out freely. What about our lagging mains, or maybe fresh alts? That's where Warbound gear is really changing things. There's a big new source of loot in the game, so here's how things work, right? If you're maybe not into housing decor or all the cosmetic things, then you've probably got loads of Voidlight Marl kicking around in your characters. Turns out, you can just turn that into gear for any character now, and it's all thanks to the Quel'Thalas equipment chests in Silvermoon. Basically, 750 Marl gets you a random piece of champion 1 out of 6 gear for your current spec, and that means that with enough luck, you can just skip the entire way to eye level 246, and then you can just use the catalyst to instantly hit your 4 set, because of course, all your alts will have built up catalyst charges. That means that a fresh 90 can get straight into Mythic plus 10s or higher, well, within minutes, basically. And from there, you'll be farming uncapped crests, nebulous cores for your bonus rolls, ascendant cores for your upgrades, and essentially, you can just fully play the game and get your character as strong as you can push it. I don't think it has been this easy to start off a character in WoW. It's kind of crazy. Now, there is a bit of a catch with these chests. They're random. They're completely random. So with the best case, it's about 11,250 Marl for a full set. You're not going to get the best case. So with bad luck, that could be double, it could be worse. Really, my recommendation for most people wanting to use this is to only really get so many bits of gear, because essentially the chances of your Marl spend being useful are the highest whenever you don't have any of the gear that the stuff can drop. The more that you get, then the lower the chance of a subsequent roll being an upgrade. So basically, I don't know, kit out about half of your character with it and then go finish off the rest from other sources. Pretty damn powerful, but if you're in the mood for farming gearboxes, there are of course other ones. There are heroic ones. They cost field accolades that of course you'll basically be earning anyway. Which is what I would say, but on the PTR, Blizzard are actually making alt gearing even easier. And of course, it's all about these boxes, and it's all about field accolades. A little bit of gacha-style blind box action here or there is kinda harmless, but when you're clearing multiple max-level ritual sites to get one box and then rolling the same slot, well, that does just feel like a huge waste of time. The good news then is that in 1207, Blizzard are adding specific slot boxes, but with a 50% higher price. So basically, 750 field accolades will net you heroic gear in the slot that you actually want, which certainly stings because it's more expensive, but let's be real, I think it is a far, far, far better deal because it'll let you just focus on shit that you actually need. But that's far from all the patch is doing. The next one's kind of interesting. So there's showdowns that are a part of Heroic World Tier, and essentially they have been buffed. They have been buffed to be an absolute just gravy train or something like that of Warbound gear and field accolades. It's kind of crazy. So you're just going to get so much loot. And basically what all this means is that we're now weeks away from reliable, alt-friendly, hero track gear, which is pretty big. But what if we don't care about alts? Well, good news is there is gear for mains as well. Now, this is mostly from the new raid, which is called Sporefall. Basically, Rotmire initially dropped Warbound gear with randomized stats. A bit of a weird experiment, but one they've seemingly killed, and they've killed it in favor of something more immediately interesting. He now drops Spore-fused gear, which is a fancy way of saying that the gear is 9 item levels higher than normal, and it's already fully upgraded. Now, for Myth tier, that comes out to 298. That's pretty huge. It's basically a full tier above what it would normally be. And then there's his Heroic gear, which is basically the same item level as Myth 5 out of 6 gear. Now, of course, numbers aren't everything. The actual loot table matters, and it's a really good loot table. There's a cantrip neck, cantrip ring, a universal trinket, plus 2 items of each armor type. So basically, whatever spec you are, there'll be a good reason to farm up Rotmire weekly before the next season starts, because this gear is actually strong enough that it will stick around for a good while. So there's a lot going on. Blizzard are doing loads of experiments, and really, I think the easiest way to understand this is it's basically like the last day of school. Blizzard sees this as the end of the season, so I think they've just decided, screw it. This is the last time that people will be doing this set of raids, this set of content, so why not just kind of let it go a bit mad? Of course, if you're not into that, sure, but if you are into that, yeah, you can get a completely busted character, you can see just how crazy your stat scaling will take you, and just become an unkillable god, I guess. Which to many people is kind of one of the points of playing an MMO. But it does bring us back to the Crest buff question. Would a 50 to 100% buff really hurt that much? That's going to be the big question. I would say, though, that we risk just giving people so much, so fast, that many of the game systems just start to break down. I know that for getting Myth Crests, that really is a big farm, a big grind, but with a lot of the other crests and with the crest trading up system, which is like pretty useful, you do end up in a situation where you're just drowning with resources. There was actually points where you were getting crests so rapidly through this game that Blizzard's own weekly limits basically felt like they didn't really make sense with the rest of the system as it had been designed. I guess I just worry that if you keep ramming people full of, fat, salt, and sugar, right? You'll get this really tasty immediate experience with the game, but maybe people will just begin to just consume it blindly as content. I'm not exactly sure, but I'd love to know what your relationship with gear is in a game like this. But hey, if all you want to do is hop back into Midnight, get a fresh character geared up, and actually have some fun, this is essentially a perfect time for it, and you'll actually have a good reason to get and use all of that really powerful gear, because Heroic World Tier is a thing, and it's actually pretty damn hard. So these things all work together quite well, I'd say. Well, 1207 being what it is, and likely being pretty soon, we can now start wondering about patch 12.1. We could be getting news about that, like, any day now. Maybe even Xbox's showcase next weekend. They could have something there. But either way, we'll find out about 12.1, and therefore, really the direction of Midnight, pretty damn soon. But if you want to understand why it might actually be worth your time to get a character absolutely juiced to the tits, well, check out this video about Heroic World Tier and all the cool stuff that's going on there, because finally, even if say you're not a raider or a mythic pluser, oh, you have a good reason to get your character geared.